Since we have a quorum, let's call this meeting to order at 2:02 p.m. Candace, can you call the roll, please?
That's Kinjo,
Yeah.
Bedoya.
Here, just say here.
Here.
Oh, Tracy's here. Thank you.
Harwood is not here yet. Hudson. Ting Tingu is not here. Marshawn.
Here.
Nyberg.
Here.
Nuno is not here yet. Rickman.
Here.
Stepper. Here. Tester. Here yet. Zuba.
Here.
Wright.
Present. Okay,
Not here. We have a quorum.
okay, let's see, who is there? Since we're in Livermore, let's have the Livermore rep, lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
Eric Dimmershine.
Flag.
Okay, we're just getting, it's coming up here. Candace has it. It's actually in another room. Okay, there it is. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That brings us to item 3, public comments. Candace, do we have any public comments?
Yes, we have one member in public.
Okay,
Roland LeBrun.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yesterday, Sadler, they added to the vision. The height between fuel cell train with the longest range. 1,741 on a single. So the technology here. Additional good news is that right now, California, 4 of them will the last year. Will be absolutely no way that factory. Now, there's also great news on the hydrogen front. Here you go on the dollar per kilo, $20 a kilo, $10 a kilo, $5 a kilo.
Roland, these people online having a hard time hearing you, so you need to speak up a little bit.
Is this better?
Too, are you?
Okay.
Yes.
I can't
So,
hear anything.
the good news is that right now, there is a thing called white hydrogen, which occurs naturally. It's on the ground, you got to drill for it, just like you drill for oil and for gas. It's just, you got to do it to find it. Right now, it's being extracted and produced in Australia for $1 a kilo. And right up the road from us in Canada, they are extracting it and producing and producing it. But I'm good here that you may bear that in mind when you decide to go ahead with trying to produce your own hydrogen. Thank you.
That will be last of public comment.
thank you. That moves us on to item 4, consent agenda. Are there any items the members would like to remove?
I'll move
If not,
consent.
entertain a motion.
Marshawn moves consent. Second Hudson.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Akinjo,
Yes, ma'am.
State it again.
Bedoya,
Yes.
Again.
City Tracy, yes.
Yes.
Marshon,
Yes.
Nywood,
Yes.
Brickman,
Yes.
Stepper,
Yes.
Testa,
Yes.
Google,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
motion passes.
Motion passes. That moves us on to item 5, approve resolution RD 1/2024, authorizing the executive director, CEO to negotiate a contract for real estate consultant project manager. Do we have a presentation on this?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we just have a very short, kind of, introduction to this item, here rights. So just to recognize here that, as you noted, that the staff is requesting the board of directors to authorize the debt director to move forward with the negotiation and entering professional service agreement with Monument right away. These services are significant as we're looking to put in place not only the policies and procedures, but to make sure that we have the team be able to actually facilitate the actual acquisitions right away as we move into that later phase of work. First phase, we have specific to process meeting all of our state and federal requirements to ensure that we're preparing a real estate acquisition and management plan with all of, again, those procedures, as well as the systems in place to be able to track the acquisition of right away, to be able to report on those activities. And then through a subsequent procurement, we will be bringing on the actual teams that will be kind of the right away professionals to the actual appraisals and negotiations with the property owners. So this is kind of a 2-phase contract. The first phase here that we're doing is specific to those requirements again for the state and the federal defense agency, and that will be occurring here over the next 6 months. And then as we clear environmental and government positions to allow us to actually move forward. It's 2 in which the same team will be managing those firms that be on the bench, the firms to be able to come on and perform the actual appraisals and acquisitions with the private properties. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer that. Just also noting that we very much appreciate the support of our member agencies in the process as identified in the report we selecting the committee. Include representatives from the city of Dublin and Livermore states in this process, and we are very excited to be bringing on Monument because it's significant experience in both the state and federal projects, which is typical here as we're looking with a significant transit project down the middle of an existing university. Happy to answer any questions.
Who are the principals of Monument right away?
So that individual is Bob Morrison, and Bob is one of those individuals again very excited to have kind of a lead role with his history, not only in public sector working actually directly for Caltrans, but again his private sector expertise and the experience working on similar types of transit projects and the same type of.
Candace, we can barely hear, and there's so much echoing. Most of what he's saying, we can't understand.
It's parts of it come through, but it's very difficult to understand everything. So are there any additional questions?
Yes. Yeah, we can't hear you.
Go ahead.
Want to recap, or can I go to the next question?
Please go ahead.
Okay, in the staff report, it mentions that completion of environmental clearance is scheduled for August 2024. Does current forecast look like we'll meet that schedule?
So we are actively engaged, looking in what we call subsequent CEQA.
Okay, excuse me. We're hearing the question really well. We're not hearing the response.
Does that help if I'm right in the microphone?
Yes, much better.
Very good. So the question was asked is
Are we tracking along with the identified environmental schedule, which is showing that we'll be completing in August? And as was noted, we have two kind of parallel environmental processes, one for the California Environmental Quality Act, which is the subsequent CEQA, and then the second for the federal environmental process, the National Environmental Quality Act, which is an environmental assessment. And so right now, we're going to be proceeding toward those, Marianne, on the environmental, including the identification of the upcoming public meetings that we're going to be holding subsequent environmental air process, CEQA, and then we are optimistic that we are going to be able to deliver the NEPA process on parallel track.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, if not, are there any comments from the public?
I do not have any comments on the public.
I will entertain a motion.
Move approval?
Second. Second, Niger.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Akeem Joe,
No.
Bedoya,
Yes.
Howard, Hudson, Marchand,
Yes.
Nygut,
Yes.
Nuno,
Yes.
Brickman,
Yes.
Testa,
Yes.
Zuba,
Yes,
Wright,
Yes.
motion passes.
Moving on to item 6, approve resolution R02, 2024, authorizing the executive director, CEO to extend the agreement for regional advocacy services. Staff report?
Thank you, Chair. This is Kevin Fairman on behalf of the staff is requesting the board authorize the director to extend the term.
Can't hear.
not hearing a
Can't
thing.
hear.
Get up on the mic. Is that better?
It sounds like you almost have to swallow that thing, because as soon as you guys start talking and relax, it goes away again.
I think it may be canceling the other mic, but I'll talk right into it. Hopefully it'll pick it up. So staff's requesting that the board authorize the executive director to extend the term.
Okay,
Not hearing
it's
anything.
inaudible.
I think this mic works a little better since you're hearing the rest of the board. Is that better?
Yes,
Much better.
Okay, so thank you. Apologize for that. So staff is requesting the board authorize the executive director to extend the term of the professional services agreement with Red Oak Engineering and Consulting for regional advocacy services in a form approved by legal counsel for a term of 10 months from March 1st, 2024 to January 1st, 2025 in the amount of $84,000. Red Oak Engineering Consulting over the past 2 years has been a tremendous help to Valley Link and the board in helping us with addressing and educating MTC and other agencies on the goals and aspirations of Valley Link and our funding needs and strategic conversations over bills and project delivery, and we're just recommending that we extend the term out so that they can continue doing those services for the rest of the year. And I'm happy to take any questions.
So 10 months simply would be to the end of the year, or is there a reason for picking 10 months as opposed to 12, 14?
I worked with Red Oak to see how much time they'd like to continue working with us, and 10 months seemed to be there. They'd like to close out their contract by the end of the calendar year. So.
Okay, thanks.
Is there a fee for service, or is this a retainer?
It's a standard, the contract's been set up for a standard amount per month. And they have a scope of work that was associated with that contract amount per month of approximately $8,400 per month.
So they think they can finish That confused me that they chose that time frame.
Well, we worked it out together. It just is a matter of their contract was terminating and I asked them if they would be willing to stay on because we have a lot of different bills that are going in front of the state legislature and working with the MTC. And we hope to have those resolved by November, in
Okay, so
election
there
year.
is specific work that's there.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Move approval.
Second,
Second.
Stepper was there first.
Roll call vote, please.
We call for.
Questions? Hold on, council member, or Director Kinjo has a question.
So how does the CEO measure the performance? And what, can he tell us something that was accomplished, not just because they are just negotiating with MTC, anything, any concrete output from them of what was done these past 10 months?
There is a scope of work associated with the contract and there's been a lot of communication and coordination with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission on helping to fund our current phase of work, but also as we move into the next phase, setting up other funds like the SB 125 funds that were a one-time funding source from the state of California that were made available. So every month we get a list of activities and meetings that have taken place. And we are confident that those meetings are helping ValueLink to succeed. And I'm happy to forward those as part of our invoice process if anybody'd like to see them.
Like to see it.
Okay. So we've entertained questions from the board. Before we entertain that motion again, do we have any comments from the public?
We have no members of the public wanting to make comments, but we have one director with a hand raised.
Okay, let's entertain that question from Director Bedoya.
Thank you, Chair. Just had a quick question for staff, and it might be more appropriate to ask during the director comments. Is there anything that you can tell us about the current Senate Bill 1031, I believe, where it's mentioning kind of consolidating transportation districts?
If that's okay, I'd like to provide that during the executive director's report.
Of course. Sure. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, staff.
Okay, can we repeat the motion again then?
Move to approve the resolution R 02/2024. I need glasses. Authorizing the executive director and CEO to extend the agreement of regional advocacy services.
And the second was by whom?
By Stepper.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Joe,
Yes, please.
Bedoya,
Yes.
Corbett.
Aye.
Hudson, Marchand,
Yes.
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 Hunt,
Yes.
Stepper,
Yes.
Testa,
Yes.
Zuber,
Yes,
Wright,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay. Do we have board member Nuno on board? Did we get him?
Yes, we did.
We did. Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yes,
Okay,
he arrived
moving-
during next call.
Okay, then moving on to item 7. Approved resolution R03/2024, authorizing the executive director CEO to negotiate a contract for financial auditing services. Staff report?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is Kevin Sheridan. Again, I'm gonna try and project my voice a little louder towards the mic. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Every time we have a board meeting, it's a different room, so we always gotta test the acoustics. Ambience. So staff requesting that the board of directors authorize the executive director to negotiate and enter into a professional services agreement with Mays and Associates to provide financial auditing services. 3-year term.
You're dropping out again, Mr. Sheridan.
Yes.
Much appreciated.
No problem. Apologies. So we're requesting, staff is requesting that you authorize the board to authorize the executive director to negotiate and enter into a contract or professional services agreement with Mays and Associates to provide financial auditing services for a 3-year term contract not to exceed amount of $90,000. Over the course since Valley Link's been established, some background on this, LAFTA was identified as the managing agency in the enabling legislation. And as part of that has been reimbursed for providing staff and administrative services. So, and last year, LAFTA went out with a new request for proposal to solicit for financial auditing services. And in that proposal, it included a piggyback clause, which allows Valley Link to utilize that request for proposal that was put out to the public in a competitive bid. And we reviewed LAFTA's proposal and the results. And at this time, we're recommending that we go with LAFTA's selection, and that was Mays and Associates to continue providing financial auditing services for Valley Link over the next 3 years. And I'm happy to entertain any questions or.
Second.
Hold on. So there are no questions. Any questions from any comments from the public?
I do not have anything from the public.
Okay, then it's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote.
I have a question.
Oh, wait, hold on. Akinjo has a question.
Okay.
So what's good? Who is moving the motion without asking for question among the directors? I think we should not be jumping to approval without allowing the directors to reflect.
Yes. Understood. Yeah, let's hold off on motions until I call for it, if you would, please.
Okay, the question is, did we have any problem with the previous auditors, or is LAFTA now just dropping us? Is there any reason behind LAFTA now telling us to go and seek outside auditors?
Thank you, Director Akinjo, Kevin Sheridan. There's no issue. LAFTA simply, it was time for them to go out for another solicitation because auditing, it's ideal not to have the same auditors on board for, I think, greater than 5 years or as frequent as needed. So they did the right thing by going out with the proposal to solicit for new vendors for auditing services. And in this case, the same vendor or consultant was selected that had been previously providing those services. So Valley Link is adding the benefit from that, and that we would continue using Mays and Associates as was used before, except we also recognize that we want the ability to have new auditors under this contract being moved in and out so that we have not the same pair of eyes or set of eyes continually looking at our finances.
Okay. I have a question.
What has changed? What has changed then?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what he said.
He asked what had changed. So what has changed is that the same, nothing from the respect of who's going to be doing the work. There just was a solicitation and a fair competitive bid in which the same consultant was selected again to perform those services. And so with respect to who was doing the work previously and who's doing the work pending the board's approval, it would be the same consultant.
But the same, and this is Vice Chair Wright with a question. So that would be then, that vendor has the right to change the staff they employ for us though, correct?
Correct. And one thing I should note is that, we have been gradually transitioning away from LAFTA as a managing agency. So we've been having our own staff and entering into our own contracts. And so this is another step in making that separation where we would have our own financial auditing services through our own contract where we're reimbursing them versus LAFTA utilizing a financial auditing services and then us paying back LAFTA with that under that contract arrangement or the managing agency.
Okay.
So,
Director Akinjo?
yes, so if Mays was there originally and we are looking at 5 years turnaround, So they have another 5 years. We have not achieved anything. That is the way I'm looking at it. Still the same company, right? And you said you wanted a change every 5 years, that we don't have the same vendor. But is this the same vendor that applied again to take over the account? So what are we doing?
Well, this is our first contract with Maze. We're simply utilizing a request for proposal that was done by the previous managing agency, which is LAFTA under the enabling legislation. So they used a procurement process that was determined to be a competitive bid process per the provisions in their procurement manual. And I'm assuming with any state or federal money that is associated with that, it simply had a piggyback clause that allows us to utilize that contract should we choose to do so. And we are recommending to the board that we continue with the services from Maze because they are familiar with ValleyLink. They went through a competitive bid selection process. And we saw no reason to go out with another request for proposal when one had already been done.
You mentioned the option, that the process with the options.
Yeah.
So that it's a 3-year contract with 2 one-year options, but we've made those options subject to approval by the board. So that if the board feels in 3 years that you want to change and have a completely different company, we can do that. Or if you want to stay with it for the other 2 years, you can do that. But I wanted to give the board a chance after 3 years to make a change if they felt that was appropriate.
Any additional questions? Stepper.
Tamara Edwards, our CFO, has her hand raised.
Okay,
Thank you. I just want to clarify, LAFTA's contract expired. It was the end of our contract. The rail authority had been being audited along with LAFTA because we were the managing agency. We went out to bid, and I included in the procurement the option for ValleyLink if they wanted to piggyback on. So they did not have to go through the entire procurement process. It is a long process. You do not have to change auditing firms every 5 years. You have to change the lead auditor every 5 years, which Maze does. So you're fine there. We went out to bid. We got 2 proposals. We had interviews, and LAFTA selected Maze. The rail authority now has the option to piggyback onto that contract instead of doing a procurement. Just to make it clear, if you do a procurement at this point, your audit will be severely late this year. If you go out to do a full bid rather than piggyback, completely your choice. I am still your CFO. I am still handling your audit. It's just you will now have your very own contract with Maze instead of being part of LAFTA's. Only difference.
Excellent.
okay. Any additional questions?
Yes, I've been
Judge
waiting.
Chester, I think.
I know you have, but I'm waiting for them to do either one of them.
You can-
Right,
Jump
yes.
up and down. Jump up,
Okay, all right.
jump up.
All right, so I'm trying to understand the cost to piggyback. Is did I hear that it was donated, so no cost to ValleyLinks, or would it be the same cost as having gone out for an independent bid? What is the difference in the cost of this?
So we asked them for a cost specific for us based on our needs.
Okay,
It's just we use a solicitation process to qualify them as the ranked consultant, as LAFTA used, included the piggyback. So we have an independent cost associated with this contract, specific to ValleyLink's needs.
and that's the 90,000.
It is up to 90,000
Up
for
to
2 years.
90,000. And so doing an independent contract would be the same cost.
Yeah,
I mean,
Why not?
yeah. right.
Kind of, sort
Yeah,
of.
right.
Okay. All right. So the reason to me, I was uncomfortable. Okay, question again. How long has LAFTA been using Maze and Associates for their, Michael, you know the answer, right? Because you
I think a
were
long time, but let's let tomorrow.
tomorrow. Could you
It's
repeat? Because I forget the.
No worries. No worries. Since LAFTA has had Maze and Associates as our auditor since 1996, we've gone out to bid at least every 7 years during that period. So therefore, ValleyLink has had Maze as their auditor basically since inception, since AB 758, I think it is, was passed, and Valley Link needed their own financial statements, their own auditing. They were taken off of LAFTA's financial statements. Mays and Associates has been the auditor for that entire period.
Okay, so I apologize that the audio is a little, so I want to just make sure that I understood. So, but you, because you said this is the first time that Valley Links will be contracted with Mays Associates. So who were you using in the past? Who was that?
LAFTA, because they're the managing agency
So,
under the neighborhood
okay, and
legislation.
LAFTA was, so in essence, it's still, okay. And so I will ask Michael, it is, I can't remember the term that was used, but best practices, it's not just that it's ideal to change every 5 years. It is really recommended that you change auditors every 5 years, and the Valley LAFTA has been using them since 1998, I think.
Legally, it's the individual in charge of the audit must change. It can be legally through the same firm.
Right.
So.
It's allowable, but not advised to go beyond the 5 years. And yet they've entered into a multi-decade relationship. And the whole idea is fresh eyes. You were making that suggestion, Kim, that it's, and so there hasn't been fresh eyes in Valley Links. There hasn't been fresh eyes in LAFTA.
Or almost any other agency. They've all used the same firm. Many have used the same firm for decades.
You know what, David, I know that my city has changed because of
Many
this.
have. Many
And
have.
I know I've watched other municipalities where I was uncomfortable
Yeah.
because they didn't. And I believe there's a reason that a law was made. And even if it's allowable to change to a different within, I think it's still really intended and
Just looking for the
stressed.
data, just looking for the data.
Yeah, okay, well, so I'm just sharing my concerns, you know, I don't think there's anything untoward, but I just think it is really defying or ignoring the law, the intent of the law, and that I think fresh eyes is something that's important. So I just wanted to point that out.
Could you ask the question that are we getting fresh eyes?
Well, I don't consider it fresh eyes when it's in the same agency, and that's why it's supposed to be, while it's allowable, it isn't what is ideal.
Okay, next question.
Karen Stepper.
Yes.
Danville, retired CPA, 35 years, not in auditing, but 25 years in politics and all these things. It is not a rule. It is something that is being advised, just because if you have the new set of eyes, it just gives you somebody else running the audit. And in Danville, we pretty much every 2 years have a different person running the audit. It doesn't have to be, but that just gives us the comfort level that you have all new eyes looking at it, because our staff doesn't change that often, but the people in the audit firm do. And so I'm very comfortable with that. And in fact, I see a lot of synergy for having them to understand what happened 5 years ago and 7 years ago when they're auditing some of these issues that are familiar to either, so sorry, I don't understand my watch on the hand. Me and Dick Tracy. Okay, so I don't think it's at all necessary to change the firm here. It's very new. We haven't been that long with us. I think it gives us comfort level that they're coming from the way we were doing our books with LAFTA, and now we're not. I think it's an advantage to use Mays and Associates. Motion would stand.
And if I just note, the reason we put the 2-year options at the direction of the board was to really respond to your concern. That if this board chooses after 3 years that they do want to change the actual firm, they'll have that opportunity.
Right. And so I'll go on the record that I was uncomfortable with continuing with Mays Associates on the LAFTA board. I'm uncomfortable continuing it here as well, so.
Mr. Kenjo.
Mr. Chair, for transparency and where Valley Link is going as we are moving through the project cycles, we do need to standardize some few things. There's nothing wrong. Just put people in an uncomfortable situation where you have the same auditor, it is recommended that after 5 years, make a change. What is so bad in making a change from Mays? The city of Lathrop was using Mays. They are still our friends, but they understand we have to make that change periodically. And we have been doing that. So I mean, I'm not the CEO of the organization, but if I'm going to be going and seeking for assistance, for grants, for money, part of my thing would be transparency, and that I'm looking carefully at my financial stability and doing my auditing. And simple things like this that can be corrected now, then is kicked down the road, and then it disturbs the whole thing. You know, financial stability and responsibility and physical responsibility is very important. Very, very important. I feel uncomfortable. Feel very, very uncomfortable that we are using 2 decades of the same eyes. Why it is okay, they know how we do business, but it might not be okay to our partners. So that's just my two cents.
Okay, and I'm going to add my 2 cents in on this. I think I heard clearly from the CFO that if we went out for a new request for proposals, that we are not going to get our audit in on time. And if she can confirm that, I would appreciate that.
Yes, so the procurement process itself took us about 3.5 months. If you started it tomorrow, which I guess you could just copy mine and take a few things out, that would put you into July. And then getting under contract, LAFTA's audit actually starts in 2 weeks. So that puts your audit over the summer. Now, you guys don't have the same reporting requirements we do. You don't have to do a state controller's report. You don't have to do an NTD report. So it would just be, maybe Michael Conneran can think of somebody else. It would just be late to you guys. But yes, it is not a quick process. And definitely the key to it is definitely reaching out. I'll also tell you, there just aren't a lot of auditing firms that do transit. So it's definitely, it would be targeting them and, you know, letting them know that you're, you know, very much interested in their services.
Thank you. That's helpful. So we've had all questions. Are there any additional director questions?
This is Executive Director. I'd just like to add a couple. One point of clarification, just listening to everybody's comments, is that Valley Link's enabling legislation became an agency with LAFTA as our managing agency in 2018. So as far as a multi-decade use of Mays and Associates, that's not the case. We've been using them for approximately 5 years. And then there was a new competitive bid selection process in which Mays was selected by previous managing agency. And in the effort of, you know, resources and the time it takes to do solicitations, a lot of times agencies or cities will use piggybacks on RFPs or assignment clauses in contracts that allows for a more efficient process for doing requests for proposals. So just to note, it hasn't been 10, 15 years, it's been 5 years, and we just had a new bid, and this is our Valley Link's first contract, subject to approval by the board. And then the second part is, as a part of this audit, we need to set up an ad hoc committee to participate on reviewing the financials and the audits. And we will work with the chair. Any ad hoc committee members are assigned by the chair, like was previously done with the ad hoc committees that the prior chair established. So we will be circling back with Chair Hernandez to ask her to identify board members to participate on the ad hoc committee so that we can have these discussions too as we continue on over the next 3 years.
Okay.
I recommend testing. On the subcommittee.
Oh, military volunteers,
Just
okay.
recommend it.
Yeah.
I'll
So
make a
I don't,
motion. Anybody want a second?
I'd also like to clarify, and I didn't mean to suggest that I understood that Valley Link was not multi-decade, but this is a rollover from the conversation. And I really want to clarify that I see nothing untoward or anything. It's just that certainly in the discussions with LAFTA, the proposal process, they said there were two candidates incredibly close, both really good, very strong. And so it didn't make sense to me that you would continue on with a contract that had gone so far over what the industry standard is, when you had another proposal that was very close in the rating. But so I understand that Valley Links is not entering into a multi-decade, but even after 5 years, that's really what we should be, you know, and so I'm fine. I do have concerns. Thank you.
Okay, that seems to be the last of the director comments. Are there any comments from the public?
I do not have any public comment.
Seeing no more comments, I will entertain a motion.
Now I'd like to remain that motion that we go forward with the recommendation of the staff report.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Akeem Joe,
No.
Bedoya,
Yes.
Albert,
Aye.
Same person,
Yeah,
so we're.
to approve
Henson,
Yes or no?
Yes.
Marchand,
Yes.
Nywood,
Yes.
Nuno,
Yes.
Brickman,
Yes.
Stepper,
Yes.
Testa,
No,
Zuba,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, that concludes our action items. Moving on to the information items. Number 8, SEIR, Subsequent Environmental Impact Report.
Good
Staff,
afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mary Ann Payne, and I'm here to provide you with a brief update on a very important project milestone in our environmental review for the Valley Link Rail project. Candace, do you have my PowerPoint? You can go to slide 2. That would be great. Thank you. We're nearing completion of a draft environmental impact report for the project, with plans to release the document to the public with a notice of availability, what we call an NOA, of a draft SEIR and notice of public hearings on April 22nd. The NOA will be widely distributed to the public through our project mailing list of stakeholders and to public agencies, nearby jurisdictions, tribes, and other local organizations. It'll also be sent by certified mail to all property owners of parcels identified in the draft SEIR as needed for construction and operation of the project, as well as we'll mail it to property owners who are located directly contiguous to parcels on which the project is located. In addition, we'll place legal ads and online editions of local newspapers with shortened versions of the NOA. That'll be in the East Bay Times, the Stockton Record, Livermore Independent, Modesto Bee, Pleasanton Weekly, Tracy Press, El Observador with a Spanish translation, and Mountain View Matters. The NOA will inform the public of the 45-day review period that'll extend to June 6th at 5:00 p.m. And the draft SEIR, which will be distributed, has been prepared pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, and analyzes potential environmental effects associated with revisions to the previously analyzed improvements included in the Valley Link Rail Project final EIR, which the board approved on May 12th, 2021. We'll make the draft available through our website, project website, the getvalleylinked.com, which specifically focuses on the environmental analysis for the project. And we'll also make hard copies available at libraries in both Livermore and Mountain House. you could go to the next slide, Candace, thank you. The NOA will inform of public, what we call open forum, public hearings for the project. First will be held in the city of Livermore at the very same location, I believe, where you are now sitting. And that will be on May 8th. And the next meeting will be on May 9th in Mountain House. Excuse me. At the meetings, the public will have an opportunity to learn more about the project, meet with project staff and consultants to ask questions, and to provide formal written comments on the draft SEIR. We'll have a court reporter available at the in-person meetings where public comment can be transcribed. We also have a virtual public meeting planned for May 15th, and that'll be in the afternoon from 2:00 p.m. till 3:30 p.m. Next slide. Should be one that's titled written comments. Don't see it, but let me just say that, there we go, written comments on the project. Again, I want to say, emphasize June 6th at 5 p.m. will be the close of the 45-day review period. And there are a number of opportunities for providing written comments, one at the public hearings, as well as sending comments by mail, by email, and then we'll also have an online submission form available on our project website, getrallylink.com. So I think that's, in a nutshell, that's what's coming up. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer on the NOA.
Any questions from the directors?
Just a couple of corrections on the slides. The address on the NOA showed the address of, showed the same address for the library in Livermore as the library in Mountain House. So just to correct that address, also the address for the Robert Livermore Community Center is 4444 East Avenue, and the slide showed 444. So there's too few fours on East Avenue for Robert Livermore Center, and it had the address for Mountain House instead of the Livermore Library.
We will be extra careful with the NOA that we send out. I'm looking at a previous draft of the PowerPoint, and we had it right. So somewhere along the line, we had a version mishap. So apologies.
It didn't go to the wrong address.
We will be sure to get that right.
The one on the agenda. Right here. Nope. Yeah, we're 1188 here, and it's 4444 East Avenue, which is the Robert Livermore Center. But in terms of the library.
Okay,
Yes,
any other?
one too few fours. And on the handout that we have, it shows 201 East Avenue, where this address is 1188.
My apologies, Director Marchand.
Any other questions? If not, thank you very much. Excellent report. Looking forward to the feedback.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving then on to item 9, station area planning and local agency agreements update. Staff?
Right, we have one member of the public wanted to make comment.
I apologize. Do we have public comment on the information item?
Hello again, and sorry for being so close to you. I apologize. What I want to talk to you about is Government Code Section 54957.5. The information that you were presented with just now is of great interest to the public, as you can readily understand. That presentation is not part of the packet. It should have been included. It also, if you look at the government code, it says that if you are unable to post it on the website, there should be some handouts. There are no handouts. So that has been a problem, quite frankly, ever since LAFTA, when we're no longer in charge of the administration. And that needs to be addressed as a matter of urgency. The other thing I'd like to bring to your attention is that all of the recordings of these meetings have now disappeared off YouTube. They're no longer being posted. So unless you happen to be on Zoom, that's it. You will never know this. So moving forward, if this material could please be posted, and my last comment is obviously what really concerns me about this project is the fact that you got two separate stations at Pleasanton. And part of my comment was to provide you with a proposal to completely integrate the two stations together so that you got seamless transfers at Pleasanton. And last comment, an SEIR, where I come from, is a supplemental environmental impact report. I don't know what the subsequent is. Is there such a thing? And if so, what is the difference? Thank you.
I can respond briefly.
Please do.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
The agency fully complies with the Open Meetings Act. The materials that are available online are made available. There is not a legal requirement that the recordings of board meetings be made available online. It's a convenience. If the board wants to do that, you certainly can, but there's no violation of law because whatever happens with YouTube is not a legal issue. And in answering the other question, there clearly is a thing called a subsequent environmental impact report. It's a report that's done somewhat later after a prior report, but it's certainly a thing. It's right in the Public Resources Code. You can look it up. And that with the advice is a very, very good consultants, that is the document that we've been advised to utilize. So I think everything's fine there. I will respond to Mr. LeBron in writing just to clarify for him what his concerns are. But I'm convinced we're doing everything appropriately.
Thank you for following up on that. Greatly appreciate it. Moving then on to information item number 9, station area planning and local agency agreements update.
Thank you, Vice Chair Wright. This is Will Ritter, Deputy Director. I'll be providing this update to the board. And if we could go to the slide presentation. Excellent. First slide. So this afternoon, we wanted to provide you an update on all the activities that are underway with regard to not only the station area planning, but also the significance this has in relationship to the local agency agreements that we are actively working on to be able to meet all of our requirements to be able to support our positioning for funding under the Federal Transit Administration's Capital Investment Grants Program. So as you have seen here over the last 6 months, there has been a lot of activity with regards to the station area planning as we begin to envision what the future of these stations is going to look like and how they are going to be serving our targeted passengers that we look to serve with the new project. Highlighted here as the Isabel Station, as well as the Mountain House Community Station, and reflective of a lot of the work that we're doing in a way with those respective agencies, including the city of Livermore and Mountain House Community Service District in specific regard to these stations where they have what we're considering station areas. We're providing parking for those individuals that would be served by those stations compared to a station such as the Devon Pleasanton, where we're not projecting that we're going to have any riders needing to be provided parking to be able to access the facility there in relationship to also the existing parking that exists from farm to. So with regards to the stationary planning, we are at a point in time when we are effectively transitioning from a lot of the planning work that was done, starting with the feasibility study and on through the original CEQA environmental process that the board had acted on back in 2021. And effectively, as a part of the transition design, we're looking at a number of the details that are identified here with regards to functional considerations, aesthetics, social considerations, environmental considerations, and of course, the phasing and expansion of the project as we look at what will be our needs for the initial operating segment and the number of passengers we're looking to serve at each station compared to the kind of growth in ridership as we go forward in the future. Next slide. Just to kind of highlight some of these things we talk about, the function is how we're actually supporting the kind of riders that are going to be accessing the station, how we're looking at sizing again, platforms and the circulation of passenger movement. And identified here, you'll see, as you've probably seen in a number of our presentations, on the lower right-hand side, what the parking or the station area looks like in relationship to the station itself, as the in-median with kind of connections via these elevated pedestrian walkways. Now, as part of the transition design, is starting to understand exactly how we're going to be accommodating that movement of passengers from parking areas to the station via different types of vertical circulation systems in that process. And another example here at Mountain House Community Station is looking at an actual kind of an underground passenger connection concept, where passengers will be able to access the platforms via an underground passageway. And then just to note here again that there's been a significant amount of local agency coordination in this process, and highlighted here, of course, is the kind of exhibit that comes out of the City of Livermore's Isabel Neighborhood Specific Plan. And just to kind of recognize this, there's a lot of attention to how we are integrating the stations and subsequent station areas and the access from pedestrians and bicyclists to folks that are going to be driving or taking buses to these facilities based upon what is being planned by the individual local agencies, especially in these kind of areas where some of that infrastructure on the local roadway system doesn't actually exist, and we're trying to make sure that what we're designing is compatible with concepts of new roads as well as intersections. And just as an example here, as we're looking at the details of the kind of proposed East Airway Boulevard, and again, trying to make sure we understand how these types of designs are going to be integrated into the work that we're doing to be able to ensure that we can have the most convenient and safe kind of access for pedestrians, individuals that are in buses as well as driving there individually. And just a note here, same situation when we talk about the Mountain House Community Service District, where there's a lot of planning going on with regards to not only kind of the vision of the Mountain House community in this kind of area of future development, but also how that relates to some of the major infrastructure coming off of the 205 freeway, and how we're ensuring that we're having active conversations to ensure that these concepts are connected and very much integrated. And then one of the other aspects of this, in particular here in the City of Livermore, is ensuring that we are thinking about the future access to the stations from other transit systems, including the Livermore Amador Valley Transit Authority, and coordinating directly with them on their visions of the future. And we focus on the infrastructure recommendations for Valley Link, the types of vehicles or service that they'll be looking at, whether it be kind of traditional buses or some of the new concepts for on-demand service, and the different types of zones that we would have to be planning for within the station areas to again be able to accommodate those unique type of services in this process. And then, of course, as we have reported on in some of the past meetings,
where we're very excited to be incorporating more focus on the equity community engagement. And so this is kind of an item that Marion Payne of our staff has reported on in the past, that we acted on this consultant contract back in December. And we're actively working with the Equity First team and their kind of initial work. We're identifying the travel shed of the ValueLink project, and through that identifying our targeted equity communities to be able to engage with in these types of processes to ensure that we are designing, in particular, the station areas and the access to stations that are going to be best serving in those communities. And as noted here, I'm looking at, we're actively working on the framework to engage the authentic community engagement and employing different types of innovative knowledge. So where this also then becomes important is we talk about local agency agreements, effectively how we are going to be able to fund as well as operate and maintain these areas as we go forward in the future. And so just a quick note here on the requirements to be able to secure federal funding under the Federal Transit Administration's Capital Investment Grant Program is where we are going to be needing to be able to provide evidence of stable and dependable financing sources to not only construct the project, including the stations and station areas, but how we're going to effectively be able to maintain and operate the system into the future. And as part of that documentation is going to be a 20-year financial plan that covers the capital and operating costs as well as revenues. And then what we're recognizing here is that there's effectively a progressive local financial commitment that we're looking at. And as part of our current phase of work with the Federal Transit Administration, where we are in project development, we have to be able to demonstrate upon the completion of this phase that we have at least 30% of the capital investment grant capital funding. So these are for construction purposes committed to the project. And by commitment, we're specifically talking about where we have resolutions from the various agencies, whether that be documenting the action on like Measure BE funds from the Alameda County Transportation Commission, or as we're talking about here, council resolutions that are committing funds that we are seeking from the individual local agencies to be able to support the project. And then as we progress again here, is showing in engineering where that needs to go to 50%. And by the time we get to construction, we have to be able to document that we have 100% of all of those non-federal funds secured in order to be able to seek a full funding grant agreement from the Federal Transit Administration. Next slide. So this just provides an overview of our kind of targeted schedule for our project development activities and entry into engineering. I'm not going to belabor all the details here, but just to recognize that there's an immense amount of work that is underway as we look at not only the environmental clearance, but also advancing the design to 30% and then managing all of the different federal requirements in order to be able to substantiate our ability to be able to not only construct, but again, to be able to operate and maintain the project. And what we're showing here really is that STAR is where we are looking to be able to complete all the project development activities by December of this year, to be able to advance into engineering, requesting that through an application to the Federal Transit Administration, where we really need to have those local agency agreements in place. And so, as I mentioned, some of the ways that we're looking as far as the station funding consideration is different elements between what would be kind of in this example, the specific, station infrastructure that would be in the median, the freeway that's being Isabel again, along with the kind of pedestrian crossings to be able to provide access to that. And then the station area, kind of the green, which you may again mentioned before, is where we're providing kind of parking for those targeted communities that the stations are going to be serving, and then looking at where the right of way and the local access improvements are going to fit into these conversations. And what we've been looking at here in part of the ongoing conversations with the individual jurisdictions, where again we have station areas associated primarily again with the two stations within the city of Livermore and the Mountain House Community Services District. For the initial operating phase is where we're looking at local agency responsibility for stationary capital costs, with recognition that right away could be reduced by opportunities where local agencies can support dedications, from developers, as well as where we are seeking to be able to secure transfers of rights away from other kind of peer agencies that currently have title to those. And then looking at where we're considering local agency responsibility for the operations and maintenance of the stations, relative to efficiencies where they may already have existing contracts for things like street maintenance, landscape, maintenance, those type of things, and where we would be looking to be able to help financially support, those types of activities through revenues that we'd be generating through parking enforcement, and other, revenue sources. And then, differentiating some of those from some of the betterments that might be applicable as we're going through some of the conversations that might be enhancements, to a station that, focuses more on some of the community character with regard to enhanced landscapes, public art, those types of activities. And then what we've also been talking about in some of the conversations is where we want to make sure that we are doing what we can to be able to support local agencies as they look at different types of revenue streams. And it could be things like land value capture, where different types of assessment districts can be put in place, to be able to support these types of public investments. And then just to highlight here some of the different things with regard to operations and maintenance, as I was mentioning, types of activities that we've seen as the costs, as well as some of the potential revenues that we look to be able to share, with the local agencies to be able to support those kind of activities in a financially prudent way. And then how we're looking to be able to progress this. And based upon, I mentioned before, a lot of that close coordination and communication with the local agencies, looking at other models that have been employed successfully from other transit entities or properties, in the Bay Area, where we'd be standing up initially memorandums of understanding for the overall implementation. It provides kind of that framework for collaboration. And then where I mentioned before, we're needing to be working towards capital funding agreements by the end of this year. And then over a longer period of time, where we end up with the operations and maintenance agreements. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Directors, are there any questions? Can we remove the slides? I can't see the board. Seeing no questions. Oh, okay. Director Bedoya has a question.
Yes. Sorry, I want to be on video. Thank you, Chair. With respect to phase 2, and I understand that my question may be a little premature. What can you tell us about the current or modified TOD requirements for dwelling units in relation to proposed stations?
Could you repeat the question?
Of course. So I understand, phase 1 has been largely planned out with, I believe, Metropolitan Transit Commission's requirements for a TOD area. But my question is regarding phase 2, and like I said, it may be something premature, but what can you tell us about the current or if there's going to be modified TOD requirements regarding dwelling units where there's going to be a station? And I'm really thinking like past Mountain House once we're looking at Lathrop, Stockton, Tracy.
Yeah, Director Bedoya, this is Kevin Sheridan. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Just to answer your question, when we begin that phase 2 or the phase of the project between Mountain House and Lathrop, we will be redoing the environmental similar to how we've done on phase 1. So we will do a subsequent environmental impact and hopefully have the interest of federal government infrastructure bill, provided we get match money from San Joaquin County and we do the NEPA document. During those studies, we will revisit with San Joaquin County, since that project will largely be all in San Joaquin County.
Director Sheridan, you dropped out for that last half.
Different frequency in my voice. I know.
I think I got the gist of it is that you'd be checking with San Joaquin County, but
yeah. So when we're doing those environmental studies, we'll certainly be re-engaging the county and the regional transportation plan and TOD elements that are specific to San Joaquin County. So then we can then build them into the project from Mountain House to Lathrop. So certainly that is will be part of that process.
All clear. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, staff.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I do. So are we
Okay,
going
hearing
to?
none, that brings us on to item 11, directors' discussions, comments, questions, and agenda requests. Are there any comments or agenda requests?
Yeah, I have general comments.
Okay, Director Kinjo,
Hey, Don, hold on a second.
next,
Hold on.
okay, and third.
Okay.
So regarding
It's
station,
just my observation. Is the enthusiasm for this project a little bit slowing down, or the energy is dissipating? Because we need to be more engaged. And I'm looking, this is my observation. Things seems to be a little bit too automatic. It gives me a lot of concern. It's okay to have yes, 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 yes. But if the CEO is not getting a feedback, a genuine feedback about how you feel about this project, then the gap is just really, we are in Washington, D.C., and we know what it means, the level of engagement. We can see, many of us knows what it means to be engaged. Well, I'm just surprised of the level of engagement that has fallen down with the Valley Link project. My observation, I'm not trying to insinuate anything with anybody, but I think the enthusiasm is not at the level that it should be. Thank you.
Next,
after that,
somebody.
tutorial, I'll weigh in.
No other comments?
No, we do.
Okay. Hearing
So
none,
can
that
you
moves
hear
us
us
on to
now?
item 12, upcoming meeting details.
Hey, can you hear?
Sorry, Director Bedoya.
Vice Chair Wright, can you hear us?
Alpert?
Are you
Yes?
able to hear us?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Can you hear us? Can you hear us now?
Give me one second. He's just fixing the sound.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you now. I had my sound turned down so we could, so there wasn't interference with Director Bedoya's comments. My apologies on that.
We'll let you know when we're done.
Okay. Next comment.
Because we are interested in this topic. We're not just a bunch of yes, men. We are very concerned about, not concerned, interested in this. So I'll weigh in with a couple of comments, which is the station planning, in my opinion, is extremely important, and I'm glad to see that we're taking the steps to do it right. But I want to caution us to make sure that we do it right by throwing out a couple of examples. Stations, I think, should be, I'll just do a juxtaposition between the two BART stations in Dublin Pleasanton. One of them is outdoors with a little bit of a covering, but you get wet every time you go. It's a pain in the butt. The other one has covered parking, a covered walkway, covered interior, air conditioned. I think it's a pleasant experience. If you go around the country and you ride multiple different transits, you'll find a wide variety of stations. My hope is that we invest in the most pleasant experience that we can afford, that the local jurisdictions will take pride and want to invest even more in West Dublin. Dublin paid for part of the enhanced experience of that station. So maybe the stations can come up with local funding. I will also say that there's a big difference between a completely urban environment where you can walk out on Broadway and Oakland and immediately find a Pete's Coffee in an office building and have your business and walk right down and get out of there on the BART train. And that's very different than a TOD. TOD sounds really good until you realize that most of the retail space in the East Dublin TOD is vacant. They can't give it away. People don't want to hang around when they get off. They want to go home. When they get there, they're busting their butts to get on the train. It's very tenuous to plan for the TOD around that. So let's find a way to crack the code and do it the right way. I agree we need to have as much residential as we can around it, but how do we balance the retail around that? It's different than a heavily urbanized, where in suburban stations, you can buy your cup of coffee right at the kiosk, 10 feet from the entrance to the train, not 10 feet, but pretty close. Anyway, if we take the time to do the details of the stations, we will have a more satisfied ridership and feel proud of what we build in 10, 15, 20, 30 years. So let's do that and be proud of it. But if you mess it up, it can get messed up. So of all the things, I know we have so many things to balance: the energy and the hydrogen, the trains themselves, and the technology, the routes. Let's make sure we also plan stations best. So I think that's where we're headed. My 2 minutes, because we're all interested in this topic and not yes men. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff Snyder from Pleasanton. In regard to the program requirements for local funding, I understood the staff report correctly. Looking at a lot of those, many of those will be placed by a year from now. What specifically are the agencies that we're looking at? And also, are there efforts going on? Let everyone know what's coming up, what asks will be, what the negotiations, if need be, will entail, so that when the time comes, these can proceed as quickly as possible.
Yes, and if you mind, so everyone can hear me. We have had, I would say, very active conversations with the agencies, that we are targeting with this policy, as well as, those, again, where, we're looking at this differentiation of a station with a station area versus a station where it's just a transfer station. I say with Devon Pleasanton, we are not building any parking in comparison to where, you progress out to Mountain House, community service district, where we're talking about the initial operating segment providing nearly 3,000 spaces. So as you can see, it's, trying to be very mindful of, what costs are involved to be able to serve, the passengers from those individual communities that the stations are going to be looking to serve. And so that's kind of what's influencing, this kind of framework of how we're approaching the cost sharing, between the specific station elements to then those station area elements, and both from a construction capital standpoint, as well as long-term, operation gain. So this has been a very, I'd say, active conversation, and really now wanting to make sure that we are apprising the board of, these activities, including, that local agency engagement. And as we're at a point now where we're finalizing what we'd say is a draft MOU to be able to share, with those, local agencies, to again be able to provide, kind of the framework of how we're looking to be able to achieve, these goals within the timelines. And then I'd say that the other thing is recognizing again that, we're trying to look at this as the uniqueness of the different stations. As I said, relative to where you get to Mountain House, we're talking 3,000 spaces. In a much more significant right-of-way acquisition and potentially other types of opportunities and interests that the community may have, with regards to, again, how we deal with some of these different types of access or future kind of development issues. So we're trying to be very mindful of that. That's why, as we capture here, that these are, at this point, still working considerations. We're not trying to come to the board with a, distinct policy that's going to be pushed down to the local agencies. We're trying to work with the local agencies to understand what makes the most sense, so that we could come back, with some form of a policy to be able to guide not only what we're doing for the initial operating phase, but as Director Bedoya brought up, how some of these things would apply as we we look to build further east, to cities and Tracy as well as River Island. Thank you.
Okay, so that closes out item 9 then. Okay, moving on to any questions from the public or comments?
I do not have any public comments.
Okay, moving on then to item 10, Executive Director's Report.
Thank you, Chair. Kevin Sheridan is going to provide an update. Director Bedoya actually beat me to it with the question about Senate Bill 1031. It's finally referred to the Policy Committee last week, and then it's going to Transportation and Revenue and Tax Committees. The hearings are likely to be the week of the 23rd, April 23rd and 24th. And what we're hearing is that there's likely, the thought of consolidation is probably going to be removed from the bill. It's likely to be removed as far as trying to consolidate all the operators in the Bay Area. And then also an expenditure plan, which we anticipated would be needed to support such a bill that will identify what the funding needs are as part of any new tax. An expenditure plan is always good to have, to be transparent about where the money is going from those tax revenues. So that's what we've been hearing to date.
I thought they were gonna consolidate art. Wasn't that? They can't hear me.
That concludes, I'm sorry, that concludes my, I was gonna keep it short and just talk about that bill, because that seems to be, there's another bill that Valley Link has that has moved forward, which is our CMGC bill, getting that, it is approved and will go for the governor's signature in the fall of this year. So we got that teed up as far as having the ability to do a CMGC, which we presented on, and we'll come back to the board and talk about those alternate delivery strategies as we move further along through the process in the future.
Sounds good, and I appreciate the attempts at humor. Online meetings, really tough. Okay, board member Bedoya said he had a comment regarding item 9, so I want to give him an opportunity to make his comment.
Thank you, Chair. I just really quickly wanted to mention that on behalf of the city of Tracy and the Valley Link board, so all of us here in attendance, myself and a delegation of city council, we're here meeting with senators and congresspeople, Butler, Padilla, DeSaulnier, Harder, and Duarte, asking for assistance with funding Tracy's future station and the operation and maintenance facility for a total of $40 million. So please know that I'm here advocating for us, our constituents, and our region. I did have one question for staff, if it's possible, and if it's offline, I completely understand. Is there any way to get a little bit of an update on San Joaquin Council of Governments discussions regarding the Valley Link project overall, the proposed track alignments, and specifically the I-205 managed lanes analysis and how it affects our board's project?
I can give you a brief update in that I believe they've extended their environmental document date out a couple years. I'm not completely, I don't completely understand. I guess that they needed more time to work through some of the Caltrans sustainability decisions. And I think that's a great question. First, thanks for being in DC, for all of you for advocating for us. But I think the question is really good for the board too, that are here in person and online, but just in general, that in order to widen any freeway, since VMT kicked in, which vehicles mile travel to reduce greenhouse gases, mitigation has to be put in place to show that there's a zero-sum gain in greenhouse gas emissions. So for any agency across the state to widen a freeway, to put in an interchange, any type of increase to capacity, the state is looking for, under law, a sustainability plan that shows how you'll mitigate that. And that essentially means a rail or a bus alternative or ped and bike or active transportation. Anything that shows how you have multi-modes of transportation that help minimize the impacts. So I feel that from my understanding, doing highway projects for 20 years and doing rail for 7 or 8 years now, is that the state is probably looking for the San Joaquin Council of Governments to come up with a plan to show how any type of managed lanes that is looking at tolling commuters, that there is an equitable transportation solution that provides a different mode of transportation. And that has not been developed yet enough to the point where they can continue moving along in environmental on the previous schedule that they were on, if that helps.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Chair.
We have one more update, Chair, that I left out and I really need to, this Saturday, April 13th, Will Ritter, our Deputy Director, 10 to 5, Alameda County Fairgrounds, Pleasanton, in Pleasanton, Innovation Fair is going on, for which we'll be participating. Valley will be participating in that. We'll be there in person and really to perform that outreach and get the message out about Valley Link. And I believe there's a couple other events that are coming, including one in Tracy in the future, and then one at Las Positas. More outreach regarding Valley Link. So we are out and about, small staff, but we're actively engaged with the community, and we have our community engagement consultants meeting also to discuss Valley Link and just to do as much outreach as possible for this phase. And as we move into San Joaquin County past Mountain House, we will be repeating. It's a cut and paste to everything that we're doing on this phase of work between Dublin, Pleasanton, and Mountain House. And we are very hopeful that you are able to get funds, because we are anxious to get to work on more on that part of the project for sure.
Okay, thank you. Moving on then to item 11 again. Sorry about that, everyone. Okay, any comments from the board directors? None?
Yeah.
It's okay. Yes, go ahead.
It's board comments.
We can't hear what Candace is saying.
We have Roland LeBron going to make a comment.
Okay, thank you.
So what I'd like to do is to give you a little bit more information on what's going on with 1031. On the 3rd, Sam Trans adopted a position of oppose unless amended. The following day, in the morning, Caltrain, and in the afternoon, the VTA adopted the same position, oppose unless amended. The next important meeting is tomorrow morning, starts at 9, but probably heard around 10 o'clock, is the BART board meeting. That's going to be a massive discussion. That's definitely going to be impact which way the bill is going. This morning, they just presented their presentation. My advice to you is go to this presentation. They do post their presentations before the meeting, believe it or not. It's a novel concept. And also, by the way, BART live stream to YouTube their meetings. Okay, it'd be a good idea if we did the same thing here. Then the very next important meeting before it goes to the Senate next week is on Friday. It's MTC, is the Ledge Committee. All the material is in there. It's a lot of material, to take in, but it's there. BART have also got the bill text in its current form. So my advice to you is to keep track of this, and sooner rather than later consider drafting and submitting a position letter on how you feel about that bill. Thank you.
Okay, moving on now to item 11, directors' discussions. Any questions from the directors?
I
Yes.
have a question. The comments made by Mr. LeBrun earlier about not having items. You said we weren't in legal violation to not have those on our website. Is there a reason that we can't have those on? You said that the board could make the decision, but so they are available and could easily be put on our website.
We have some.
Yeah, we have, I mean, it's just.
But maybe the more significant ones you posted along with. I mean, some are involved. I mean, you look at today's agenda, it's part of the agenda packet was the slides from PowerPoint. It's just that every PowerPoint, you posted every one. If that's the board's.
I like transparency, and if someone from the public is asking for it, if it's available, I would like it to be on there.
Well, they can certainly ask for it to get it. It's public record, so they can make an individual request, but if they want to put it on the website, they can certainly do that.
So clarification of the question. A recording of this meeting, the slides that were presented, our comments, so that people can watch it later is one thing. Another thing is what's posted as an agenda and backup materials and everything is almost always brought to the meeting with a summary of that, a PowerPoint that even we don't see until that moment of the meeting.
Right.
And so I'm trying to clarify, because posting the recording for people to see afterwards is one thing, but staff, and I'm also irked by this, we get the staff report, a PowerPoint at the meeting, and it summarizes the mound of paper, but that's just the way it is. And we've read the material, so we hear it, we see the presentation as it happens. But I don't know that we can ask staff easily to put that on the posting ahead of time. They're often working on it up until the minute. But it's all information that's just a summary PowerPoint of what's in the packet. Because I've asked the same question, can we not have that? Because it's very nice and summary. But they're often working on it up until the minute. So I guess what I'm good with is to say, post the recording of what we've discussed. That seems easy to do. So if we do that, fine. But what I don't know that we'll ever get to the point where we can post the PowerPoint summary presentation that's given at the meeting ahead of time. And so I don't know if which is the question, to post the recording of this meeting?
Well, that would be my request, because that's what we do for the city of Pleasanton.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the email we got from Mr. LeBron. And it does say presentation and videos. I would like at least just the videos, if that's what's simple.
Yeah, I know of one agency that is able to put, I sit on 15 or 20 of these.
Yeah.
One is able to put the presentation that staff gives, the same exact one, 72 hours ahead of time. One. The others, you come and you hear you see it and you see the packet that you have ahead of time, but only one is able to put staff's presentation ahead of time. But it's on the recording. And so if the recording is easy to post, I'm good with that.
And just to clarify, the statute that Mr. LeBron cited says that at the time material is distributed to the board, it should be made available. So if you're not seeing it until you're seeing it, it is available.
Same time.
We also have the extent the time. But I think so. Certainly, I'm just saying legally, until it's presented, you're not in violation of 5.9%. But that's legally, I mean, in terms of what do you want to do as a board, in terms of your policy and how you want to present, and how much work for staff to make that available. That's really for them to advise you. We do the YouTube, we just don't have control over it, is that?
No, we just have not been posting it on.
Okay.
We had a couple of meetings where we had some audio and video problems because we had to change rooms a lot. Trying to lock down locations.
So on a couple of those meetings, the audio wasn't too good. YouTube video.
And those audio problems are continuing into this meeting because we didn't hear any of what you just said.
You know, that's how- But we can certainly look at, Chair, we can certainly look at posting videos up to YouTube. And I believe that.
Do you have enough staff to do that?
There's 5 of us. But
How many staff does Pleasant?
I think there's
500.
That's more than double.
I appreciate,
Just making sure you have the staff.
Okay. Any additional comments? Hearing none, our next meeting will be June 12th at the Mountain House Chambers, 2251 East Main Street, Mountain House. And if there are no other questions, we are adjourned. Thank you all. And I appreciate your patience in getting through this meeting. It was kind of complicated over here. We were dealing with a lot of external noises in the building we're in. And I was trying to manage that by turning off my volume and muting, and we got into a little confusion there at the end. So I appreciate you all staying with me. Bye-bye.